Hello! Today we are going to talk about prompting. I know most of us carry much knowledge about the basics of prompting. However, I do want to review but then go more in depth about prompt dependency. We will talk about how learned helplessness can evolve from prompt dependency. Many children are taught to be helpless, and most of the time, adults who are working with a child doesn't realize it's happening. This is a huge problem. Fading prompts are a critical aspect to aid in reducing prompt dependency. Lastly, we will discuss how important it is to educate the IEP team and families on how to continue working towards independency and reduce continuous prompting when it is not needed. Again, so today we will quickly review what is a prompt. Why do we prompt? I know all of us know this, but as this is just my second ABA class, and I am a special ed teacher, however, it's just fascinating how much goes into just understanding prompting, all the things that we need to know to help our children gain that ultimate goal, independency, and being successful on their own, but also not having them completely depend on us all the time. So we have to understand, where is that balance? Stimulus and response prompts. Why do we prompt? Errorless learning. What is prompt dependency? The importance of understanding prompt dependency. Learned helplessness. How to increase independency through prompt fading, prompt delay schedules, fading prompt transfer, and again, how to educate IEP team and family members about the importance of all of these things we're about to talk about and the things that they need to know when using prompts with their kiddo. ASR 1, what is a prompt? Anything in addition to the SD that increases the likelihood of a correct response. ASR 2, what are some types of prompts? Verbal, visual, physical, modeling, gestural, and positional. Now let's identify some prompts. We're going to watch these 4 videos. They're 8 to 10 seconds long. We're going to watch them, and then we're going to come back and discuss what type of prompting did we see.
Okay, have we arrived at school today? Yes. Have we done meet and greet? Yes. Have we done morning circle? No. We're going to do morning circle. We're going to do sentence.
All right, what did you see? Visuals, whole group visual schedule. Love that. I personally have that in my classroom. All of my students have their own individual daily schedule, as well as we have a whole group schedule in the front of the classroom. Love that. Let's look at the next one.
It's time to eat. We're going to pick up our fork.
All right, what did you see? Physical prompting, more specifically a full physical prompt, as she did hand over hand, took his hand holding the fork, guided it up to his mouth and did not let go. So full physical prompt, as well as verbal. She's talking through the steps.
What is he doing? What is he doing? What is he doing? Crawling. Crawling. Good job.
All right, I definitely like this one, especially being in verbal behavior this semester. What did you see? Verbal prompting. Also a little bit of wait time, and she, repeated herself. What is he doing? Because it's like she could probably see it, in her eyes, like the little girl knew, but she just couldn't get it out, as well as she was fading into the word crawling. Crawling.
Beep, beep. I need some gas. Fill it up, please. Okay.
All right, what did you see? Modeling. Yes, and being a special ed preschool teacher, modeling is our best friend. They're learning just everything. And so if we can model it and see if they can do it on their own, that's a great way to start, using the prompting hierarchy is modeling, task. Yes, love that one. More specifically, ASR 3. All of the prompts we just discussed fall under two specific types of prompts. What are they? Response prompt and stimulus prompt. I know we know this, but let's keep warming up our brains. Now let's look at this simple side-by-side chart I've created for response and stimulus prompts. Response prompt works directly on the response, behaving immediately to teach the correct response. The therapist or teacher intervenes immediately, usually, to help aid in the correct response. ASR 4. From the previous slide, which types of prompts that we listed would be in the response prompt group? Verbal, modeling, and physical prompts. Stimulus prompt works directly on the stimulus. You are changing something about the stimulus. You're making it bigger, a different color, brighter. You're doing something usually specifically to the stimulus to help aid in the correct response. ASR 5. Now, which type of prompts would be in the stimulus prompt group? Visual, gestural, and positional. I know all of us have seen this hierarchy many times, but I just wanted to add it on a slide for a simple reminder. In my class, we have this posted on a wall. Easy access to visually remind us daily. So again, as we know, the very top is where we want to be, just a simple visual cue. It's least intrusive. As we go down, verbal, gestural, some modeling, a partial physical, and then a full physical is less independent, more intrusive. So we want to stay towards gestural and up, really, maybe a little bit of modeling, less intrusive and more independent. Again, just it, goes along with what is their repertoire, where you need to start with prompting. Very important, again, I'm just reiterating this, when making the decision of where to start on the prompting hierarchy for a student, you must base it off of their repertoire. If they're really strong in imitating, use modeling prompts. If they're able to if they have a good, strong vocabulary and a repertoire of identifying pictures, use visuals. Many times I think we fail to understand and know exactly where the child is in their repertoire. Observations, talking to previous IEP team members, parents, past therapists will help in deciding. But you still have to observe that student and make sure you think the same before providing specific intervention. Why do we prompt? ASR 6. When a therapist teacher is introducing a skill for the first time, they are using prompting to promote what? Errorless learning. We don't want the child to mess up in the beginning. We want them to be successful, to get that reinforcement immediately, etc. The things we know, but it's interesting that prompting does promote errorless learning in the beginning. We want to set our clients up for success, again, when they are learning new things, but we have to keep that independence is the main goal. Now that we've reviewed what is a prompt, the different kinds of prompts, the two main types of prompt groups that all prompts fall under, and simply reviewed how to prompt effectively with our students by using the prompt hierarchy, let's talk about what happens when we don't follow the hierarchy of effective prompting. This next section of the presentation will be over prompt dependency. What is prompt dependency? When a person responds to prompts instead of responding to the cues that are expected to evoke the target behavior. What does it look like? When a child is experiencing prompt dependency, it is difficult for them to recognize their own mistakes. It becomes easy to rely heavily on others to give them some sort of indication that their answer is correct. This really happens. We know that child can do it. They just did it by themselves, but it's like something inside them, like they have to have that reassurance because maybe they have been prompted for so long. They have to have that head nod, that physical prompt, etc., to continue through and choose the right answer. Here are some of my personal experiences with prompt dependency. I've had students completely freeze in the middle of a task and just look at me or one of my assistants, wanting to have that hand-over-hand help or to basically do the task for themselves. Task for them. I have had students shut their eyes, stay very calm, but are telling us they are not capable of following through with the task, washing their hands, unzipping their backpacks in the morning, getting their folder out, walking up the stairs on the jungle gym, out on the playground to slide, even though these students have performed all of these tasks independently and successfully just yesterday. I think a huge problem that we are facing in the school systems, etc., just across different settings, is we're in a hurry. Life is so fast, and we, especially in a 7-hour workday, when we have many different children that have different diagnoses, they have different needs, different strengths and weaknesses, and it's just easy when we're late for library. All right, yes, I'll just do hand over hand with them, washing their hands real quick. We got to get to library. It's just when we continue to do these things, it's not helping the child. It's not doing the right thing for them. We just really need to be aware of that. All right, I looked up an article through the TTU library, and it is Promoting Task Accuracy and Independence in Students with Autism Across Educational Settings Through the Use of Individual Work Systems. It was written by Kara Hume and 2 other colleagues in 2012 from the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. I really liked this article. It was an easy read. Prompt dependence hinders the ability of independent skills, reduces the student's level of participation, and increases overall indifference as well as learned helplessness. That was a quote from Hume, and I really liked that quote. I thought it was a very good just hook to this whole article. All right, the study developed independent work systems to build up independence and also generalization of skills across settings for 3 first-grade students with autism. The students did spend a portion of their day in the gen ed setting, but required much support and prompting from teachers. It demonstrated that the use of the individual work systems resulted in improved accuracy academically, decreased levels of adult prompting, and setting generalization for all 3 participants. They all had a pretty significant gain in, with their academics, the decreased levels of prompting, and just being able to generalize across settings when using the independent work systems. Having everything, just visually laid out for them, but not having someone stand over and do hand over hand or walk them through each step that we all are kind of guilty of doing because it's easier, or maybe we still feel like the child needs that. And the 3 participants maintained accurate responding with very low levels of prompting up to 4 weeks following the termination of the work system intervention. Very cool article. ASR 7. What can prompt dependency promote? Learned helplessness. Learned helplessness. What is learned helplessness? Perceived to be uncontrollability that leads to expectations about the future which impair the learning process. It results in escape avoidance learning. What if you can't determine if a child is not completing a task because they don't want to or because they can't? Going back to that skill deficit versus performance deficit. Reevaluate their verbal behavior repertoire, their receptive language listener behavior repertoire. The skill deficit versus performance deficit will usually be very clear. ASR 8. How can we prevent learned helplessness from occurring? Promote more what? Independence. This seems appropriate as July 4th is next week. Just kidding. All right. The way we promote more independence is going to be the last section we talk about today, prompt fading. Prompt fading is when prompts are transferred to naturally existing stimuli as well as soon as possible. So you're transferring the prompts, but you're also doing it as soon as possible, transferring it to the natural existing stimuli. Most to least prompts, but then gradually reducing, but still as soon as possible, to least intrusive prompts. For example, modeling something, going just to verbal instruction on how to do it, and then, of course, just to the natural stimulus. In this study on slide 15, the prompt fade was creating the independent work system. It established less use of prompts from the teachers. Let's watch an example.
Okay, girl, it's time to clean up. Put in. There you go. Good job. Put in. That's right. Perfect. Put in. All right. Put in. Nice cleaning. Put in.
ASR 9. She's mostly fading which type of prompt? Physical prompt. It was a full physical prompt fading into a partial prompt, fading into just verbal and some gestural positional prompting. What we saw, continuous verbal prompt, time to clean up your blocks, put in. Full physical prompt, hand over hand on his lower arm wrist. Partial physical prompt, hand over hand under his wrist lightly, under elbow lightly, then none, but still with a lot of gestural and positional prompting. When using prompt fade, use time delays. More specifically, use a progressive time delay schedule, starting at a 0-second delay between the presentation of the natural stimulus and the response prompt. But then according to your client's functional level, that's really huge and important. You have to work on their level, where is their repertoire. Gradually and systematically extend the time delay, usually in 1-second intervals. So down here below is an example time delay data collection sheet. I thought that was very easy. So this student is trying to learn to say stop when presented with a flashcard with the word stop on it. So on the same day, on August 12th, they're doing a 3-second delay, and then also they're doing it again the same time 3-second delay. But as you can see, the second time they did it, there was improvement before prompting. They were able to say stop 3 times without a prompt. And also fading prompt transfer, transferring the stimulus control to the next level of least restrictive prompting on that hierarchy. How to educate IEP team members, 1 through 6. Review why we prompted them. A lot of them don't even really know why we prompt. I mean, like the true meaning of why we prompt. Give everyone a copy of the prompting hierarchy. Discuss as a team where you think the child's repertoire is. Explain with great enthusiasm of how our ultimate goal is to promote less intrusive prompting. Explain learned helplessness. That goes back to number 1. Why we prompt is because we want to introduce like the errorless learning, but then what can errorless learning, fade into? It can fade into learned helplessness. They just don't know truly what all of that means. Number 5, explain and model how to prompt fade when a child is ready for more independency because they have mastered a skill. Talk through scenarios of how to prompt fade when a specific task that child is learning. From a specific task that child is learning. Last one, just be aware. Know when your child is becoming dependent. Take the necessary steps to build independency through prompt fading. Visuals, PECs, first then cards, Boardmaker's website. You probably will have to subscribe and register, probably pay something, but the TTU SPED department has free access to Boardmaker, as well as a good friend of mine in the class, Angel, introduced me to Do To Learn website, do2learn.com. It's free and it has great visuals. It has it divided up between like social, emotional, adaptive, daily living, and as well as different grade levels, I'm pretty sure. So it's really cool. References, the White Book, Dr. King, Kelly Tabinski is my supervisor for my ABA hours. Eisenberg, she was a speech and language pathologist, and I thought that it was a blog, but I thought it was a great, easy read for parents, very relatable and knowledgeable. I got an article from the TTU website through the library. This was Advances in Cognitive Psychology, where I got my information about learned helplessness, the definition. A great article on prompts and prompt fading is the second to last one. Macduff was the first author in that. Great read. And the last one was my study from Hume, just about how creating those independent workstations did, in fact, reduce that prompting from the teachers. And the creating those independent workstations was, their technique of fading the prompts. Thank you. Now go evaluate your clients and see if they are ready for some prompt fading. It's huge, guys. We don't want them to become so helpless that they, need us and moms and dads. And that's a whole different topic. Moms and dads just really don't know sometimes that they are, really holding them back. And it's just our job to educate them and just keep doing the best that we can for our clients. Thank you. Miss you guys. Have a great weekend.